Okay, so we're going to start by having a look at adding a title. So first thing to do is to go to New File, New, and Legacy Title. Okay, and then we can give our title a name. Okay, and then we've got the separate editor window opens up. So the first thing we want to do is we want to add in our, well actually initially what we can do is we can scrub here using this scrubbing across the timeline here to get to the video clip we want to put the title over. So let me go to this one of the temple. Okay, for more precise movement of the needle on the timeline, you can use the, if you click to activate the timeline window, you can right, left click on the arrow keys. So right. Okay, so the right, left arrow keys can you can move right to left along the timeline. So to add the title, we've got the text tool here, type tool. So again, these tools should be familiar from other applications, other Adobe applications. Clicking it on top of the video and text in. Okay, and then with the selection arrow, we can position the text where we want. We've also got options down here, so different types of title styles. What we can also do is we can use this color picker here to select a color from the video itself, which can be useful. Go with the blue sky. Or you know, conventionally you can double click and you've got the swatch and you can choose a color that way. And then obviously we can position, we can scale the text. So if you hold down Shift again to constrain the scale. So those really are the main ones. You've got a series of different properties here. You can change the font, etc. That again, I'm sure that, you know, these are all familiar. Okay. Okay, so once we've got the title as we want it, we can close the title window. We can then drag. So from the project window here, you can see the title now is in the project window. We can drag that onto the timeline. So again, we've got various layers here. So we wanted it here. Put it on the V2 layer. It's fine. And you can see that now overlaid over the text, over the video. So I can adjust the length of the clip if I wish, beginning or end. And just sort of experiment with that. So I'm happy with it. So I think I'm just going to keep it overlaying the temple clip. Now I might want to add an effect in here. If I wanted to do that, I can go over to the effects menu here. I can look for, so say I wanted to use cross dissolve, I can search for cross dissolve here. Get the cross dissolve transition. I can drag that over the title, and then you'll see that we get a little dissolve in for the title. Again, if I want to zoom in on the timeline here and adjust the length of the cross dissolve itself, I can do that independently of the clip. Okay, and then if I want to go back and re-edit the title, have another look at it, I can double click on it in the timeline. That reopens the editor window, title editor window, and then I can make any additional adjustments. You know, these various, again, you can experiment with these various options here. Placing drop shadows and these kind of things. Okay, so this is using the sort of onboard Premiere title creator, graphic creator. We can also really incorporate Photoshop and use Photoshop here, which gives us far more options, create more detailed graphics, animations, this kind of thing. So I'm going to show you how to import a graphic into Premiere now from Photoshop. So if we go to File, New again, and down to Photoshop File, and then that's all set up. The dimensions match the video, so we can go to OK, and then we want to create a template for our graphic. So I'm just going to call this graphic and save. Okay, and that will automatically open up in Photoshop. So you see this matches the dimensions of the video. Now I've got a pre-prepared drawing I'm going to use here for the time being. So if I now go to File and Place Embedded, navigate to where my character is. So this was created in well, actually in Illustrator and then converted to Photoshop. But anyway, you can use Illustrator as well. This, you could create a graphic in Photoshop. Okay, and that's placed it there. If I press Enter to just place that permanently, and then if I go to File and Save, okay, I can now close that down. If I go back to Premiere, you'll see that I have that graphic on the timeline, graphic.psd. Okay, and I can now drag that from the project window onto the timeline. You'll see now that my character drawing appears hovering over the video. Again, I can double click on the graphic to open it up in a separate editor window. Okay, what we can also do is we can animate the graphic now. So if we double click on it, we get these the scale box around it, so I can scale it if I want. I can move it. So various options there. Like the transform tool, I can rotate. Like the transform tool in Photoshop and animate. So I'm going to move it. Actually, before I go to that, what we can also do is we can, if we want to re-edit it in Photoshop as well. If I go down to the timeline here, right click on the graphic in the timeline and go to Edit in Adobe Photoshop. So just demonstrating this kind of workflow between Photoshop and Premiere. There we go. So we've got it in the sized window there. So if I wanted to add effects here, I can open up blending options from the layer panel here, and I could have a drop shadow or an outer glow, any of these kind of things. So again, I can tweak it in Photoshop. Once I'm happy with that, I can save again. Okay, and we can go back to Premiere, and any changes will have updated automatically in Premiere. So you've got this kind of workflow between the two. Okay, so moving on to animating it now. So if I move the playhead to the start of our graphic clip here, and then double click on the graphic if I need to, just to reactivate it. Okay, and then if I want to move it, sorry, let's make sure on the graphic clip, make sure I'm double clicking on the graphic clip. Just a minute, sorry, bear with me. What I'll do now, what I've got here is another layer with some text on it, which is getting in the way. If that's getting in the way, I can lock the layer with that on, so I don't accidentally select it. Double click now on our graphic. I want to move it over to the right here. I'm going to just make it move across the screen. Moving over to the right. Okay, and then if I go over to effect controls here, we've got underneath video effects, we've got motion control. Okay, if I just click once on position, you'll see a keyframe diamond. It's a bit difficult to see, but a diamond shape that represents a keyframe has appeared here on this timeline. Then if I drag the playhead, so a bit like a motion tween in Animate, so if I drag the playhead to where I want the animation to finish, and then again double click on the graphic and move it to where I want the animation to finish, and you'll see this a bit like a motion tween in Animate is appearing between the original keyframe and the second keyframe. It automatically creates a second free keyframe here. Okay, and then if I scrub the needle back here, you'll see that that's animated it for us. Yeah, so straightforward. Again, I can, like in Animate, if I wanted to scale it, so I wanted it to move and I wanted to adjust the scale, we can do that too. Also, if I wanted to add a key, so you see where it says scale here, if I want to click on that, I can also add a keyframe to the scale. When it turns blue, that means the keyframe's added. So I can also animate the scale. So again, if I move so we start off over here, if I move the needle to the end here, and again click on the character here, and then scale him up, you see that it's added a keyframe to the scale layer, and now it should actually tween the animation to the scale as well. So we've got movement and scale animating now. Okay, so what we can also do is we can work in between Adobe Animate and Premiere, just like we can between Photoshop and Premiere, or Photoshop and Animate. So these are all Adobe pieces of software and they work well together. So if we switch to Animate now, so keeping our Premiere project open, so I'm going to go into Animate. We've got an animation here. So we have a basic tween, a character with a little walk animation, and then a motion tween. So I'll just play this for you, just test this. So test scene. So this is the animation. You see his legs and arms moving, and he's moving from left to right across the stage. Now, a couple of things to think about. One is the stage size here. So if we go to Modify Document, now I've actually set this so it matches the size of the video in Premiere, which is 1280 by 720 pixels. Now if we go back into Premiere here, you see 1280 by 720. Okay, and I've also changed the frame rate to match the Premiere project, which is 23.9. It's actually 976 in Premiere, but round it to 9.98. So that's fine, so that'll all match up. So we want to export this now. So if we go to File, Export, Export Video, and here, now the important ones here is ignore stage color or generate alpha channel. That means that we'll just have a transparent background, which we want because we want to overlay this over the video. So if I export, okay, so that's exported that now as a QuickTime movie, which we can easily import into Premiere. So if I go back to Premiere and File and Import, and navigate to our file. Okay, and you see that's brought that into the project window here. I could simply, as we've done before, drag this onto the timeline, and then if I just scrub the needle over that, you can see in the program window here, we've got our animation, we've got our character walking across in front of the video. Again, if we want to edit this further in Premiere, if I double click on the character, like we did before with the titles, you see the transform window. I can actually scale the character if I want to. Okay, so that's in a nutshell, that's how you import from Animate.